Okay, so I'm going to pick up this week, continuing on where we left off last week. So if I take a look, last week we worked on our movie list, and if I run this, we have a list of different movies. We have the ability to add movies, but what I want to do is I want to add in the functionality to change movies, update them. So maybe I don't know, if I wanted to change this to the Toxic Avenger and actually write the full word out, I could do that. I also want to have the ability to delete items. So maybe Rocky fell off my favorite list and I want to have the ability to just delete that. So I'm going to start with the edit functionality. So within my program, I currently have an add movie and then the movie list. I want to add in like a movie update. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy the add and then I'm going to paste it right into its existing folder. And then it's going to be called movie update. So I just copied all the functionality from add and renamed it to update. And the reason that I did that is because the add is pretty close. It's got the movie name and the movie rating. And what I'd like to do is I'd like to be able to click on Rocky and then pop to something that looks like that, but is pre-filled in with Rocky and with the rating. I don't remember if that was PG, but that's what I'm going to do. So I'd like to click on it and have it automatically fill in here. And then I want to have the ability to either change it to Rocky 2 or something like that. And then hit update, where I would say update instead of add. And then this would become Rocky 2. Like right now I'm doing an insert. So it actually inserted Rocky 2, but I don't want to insert, I want to update. So it's going to look similar, it's going to act similar, but we need to change the SQL a little bit in order to make that work. So what I want to do is I created my movie update, but I want to go to my movie list. Let's start there. And this is where we're going through and we're looping each one of the movies here. So we have a while loop, and as we're enumerating through it, we are showing each one of the individual movie titles and rating. And what I want is I want to be able to click on the title, the movie title. I want this to be a hyperlink that's going to jump over to a different form. So the way I'm going to do that is right here I've got my TD, my greater than, my less than. So outside the TD tag, but still in the string, so I want to be inside that string, I want to add an ahref. Now I'm in double quotes, so I'm going to hold off. I'm going to go ahref, and I want to go to movieupdate.php. And then I'm going to close that up. So I've got my href. And then on the other end, on that closing TD, I need to close this A tag up. So that's my anchor tag, my A tag. So I have my opening A tag, and then I've got my content, which is my row, which I'm pulling from the database, which is my movie title, and then I'm closing that A tag up. So I'm just going to save this, and then I'm going to come over here and refresh. So notice how I've got all of these now are hyperlinks. So if I right-click View Source, it's a little messy, but I definitely see I've got my TD here, and then inside my TD I've got my href going to Rocky. So if I click on it, it's going to movie, M-O-V-I-E, update.php, and that's not found. Oh, it looks like I've got an A in there. So I'm going to rename that. Somehow I stuck in a movie update. Okay, that's better. So just so I don't confuse myself, this is movie update. I'm going to change this to be update. So I'm going to come over here to my movie update.php, and then I've got my table. Instead of add new movie, I'm going to just call this thing update movie. And then my button, my submit button, instead of add new movie, it's just going to say update movie. So if I refresh that, now I know the difference between the update. So if I go to my movie list, if I click on add new, it says add new movie, but if I go back to my movie list, if I click on a movie, it's saying update movie. So what I'd like to do is if I click on Rocky, I'd like to have Rocky here and PG here. But if I click on the Blob, I'd like it to say the Blob PG-13. So that's my goal. So in order to do that, this page needs to know what movie got clicked on. So we need to figure out how to store the movie that got clicked on. So if I click on the fog, the key is number 2. So that's the primary key. It's the unique identifier for this record. So somehow we want to pass number 2 over and then be able to list the details in here. So what I want to do is in my movie list, I'm going back over to my movie list. I've got my ahref. What I want to do is I want to add in a question mark. So the question mark is the separator between the actual physical page itself and any variables. So like when we've done things that we're using the get method, so if I ask the 8-ball a question, with a question mark, I used a post. Well, if we would have used the get, we would have seen, question mark and then some variable up here. So that's really what I want to do, is I want this to pass in the question mark and then the variables. That way we know which one it is. So the variable, I can just make this up. I'm just going to call it an ID, just because that really does make a lot of sense. Then I'm going to make the ID equal to. So now we're going to have to concatenate this movie ID in there. So I'm going to use a double quote. I'm going to do a dot, and a double quote. So I'm just going to break this string apart here. And then my movie ID is a row movie ID. So I'm just going to put that right in here. So I've got an ahref. And then right here I've got my movie update question mark ID is equal to, and then I'm concatenating whatever movie ID it is, 2, 3, 4, and then I'm concatenating on the closing. So if I save this, and if I come over here, go back over to my movie list, now if I hover, if you look down here, you'll be able to see each movie has its own unique ID. So 5 has an ID of 5, Rocky is 6, so I can see my ID is 6. So I'm going to click on the fog, which is 2. If I click on it, now I'm on my update movie, but up here I see that I have an ID of 2. So I know what movie I'm currently on. So what I want to do is right here, I want to be able to do a select statement on the ID2 and then put the data in here. So that way, when I hit update, that data will be updated in the database. So I'm going to go back over to my movie update.php. I'm going to go way up to the top here. So I've got some code here that I'm doing for my insert statement. For right now, I think I'm just going to leave this code alone. I think the code can be usable, but instead of doing an insert, we'll do an update. So for right now, I'm just going to leave this alone because I think there's a lot of promise. But I do want to know if there's a get, because there is a get, because I see it right up here. So I can get this ID. So I can use a get statement to get the ID, which would hold a value of 2. So this is a perfect example of where we're mixing both the get and the post within the same page. So I'm just going to do an if statement. And what I want to know is if that value is set, which it should be. So instead of using the post, I'm going to use the $_ get, and it's just called lowercase id. It is case sensitive, so if you have an uppercase, that wouldn't be good. So if this is set, the get ID, then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to throw that in a variable. I'm just going to call it ID. I'm going to make that equal to, the other thing is $_ get, that has to be all caps. So you have to make sure you always use either the get or the post all caps. So if I save this, actually what I'm going to do just to prove it, I'm going to do an echo. My $_ ID. And then I'm going to do an exit. Just to give me a white screen with just my ID on there. So if I look at this, if I refresh this, I've got a 2. If I did a 34, I got a 34. If I did Bob. Doesn't matter what it is. As long as it's set to a value, the code will see the value, say, yes, this is definitely set. We're loading it into a variable. We're just printing it out and quitting right now just to make sure that this part of the functionality works. So I want to think about it a little bit deeper, because we're coming from this page. The only way we can get to the update page is if they click on, like the Toxic Avenger, and then they get the ID up here. So no one should ever browse directly to Movie Update, because if they browse directly to Movie Update and they don't pass in an ID, no ID is a problem for us, because then what are they going to update? There's going to be nothing there. So, so what I think I would do is, if it's set, cool, we'll grab it and we'll use it. If it's not set, I'm going to throw an else statement in here and get them out of here. What we'll do is we'll pop them back to the movie list like we did before. So we'll use the header and then set the location equal up to the movie list. So if they have an ID, that's fine. Then we can use it. If they don't have an ID, they shouldn't be here. And if they shouldn't be here, we'll get rid of them. So if they come directly to movieupdate.php, we hit that, pops them right back over here. They click the link, then we get the 1. We get the 6. But if they don't have that ID, then we got a problem, and then they come back here. So now, let's say they come here for the first time. Let's start coding this up. So really what I want to do is I want to do database stuff. So I'm just gonna include this once. So we're going to use it in either place. So I'm just going to include it at the beginning. Okay, so then we're going to create our database connection. We're going to do our SQL statement again. I'm just going to copy all this. Actually, I'm going to steal all of this. Might as well. I'm going to delete that. Okay, so we've got the ID that the user typed in. So now instead of doing an insert, we're going to do a select. And I'm going to just do a select star from my movie list. Now, I'm going to do where. And in my movie list, I think it's called movie ID, where movie ID is going to be equal to, and then I'm just going to use that placeholder again. And I'm just going to do a lowercase ID. Then I'm going to bind that. So I've got a lowercase ID, and then that's going to go to my variable ID. Then I'm going to execute it. And after I execute it, I want to fetch the records. Okay, so let's just go through this. I typed in, I clicked on the link, and 23 is in the URL. I pull 23 out there. I open up my database connection, pick up the phone, make the phone call. The database server picks up. At that point, I say, hey, give me all of the fields from this table, movie list table, where the movie ID is equal to, and that's a placeholder, but we're injecting, oops, need a dollar sign. We're injecting our variable here into that placeholder where the movie ID is equal to 23. It executes. Now it's only going to bring back one record, record 23, but we need to put that into a row. So just like we did over here on this movie list, we did the execute, and then we fetched it into a row. We're going to do the same thing here. We're just going to fetch that record, put it into the row, and then what I want to do is I want to basically get the rating and the title. Those are the two things I'm interested in. So I'm just going to create local variables, one called rating, and then I'm going to make my rating equal to my row. And in my movie list, I'm actually using, so it's movie ID, movie title, and I'm sure it's movie rating. Yeah, there's movie rating. So I'm going to copy this. I want to do the same thing, but now instead of the rating, I want to get the title. And technically, I don't need to get the ID because I already have the ID. The ID is here. We sent the ID across the wire. So actually, if I wanted to be really thorough, I wouldn't even have to do a select star. I could say just give me the movie title and the movie rating because I already have the ID. But this is the way that I would do it in the real world, so that's what I'm going to do. So after fetching that row, we're just going to peel both of those out. And then what I want to do is I just want to display them inside the text boxes. So over here, I've got my input. It's going to set a value up. And I'm going to make that value equal to the inline PHP of the variable. So title will be title. And then the movie rating. I'm going to do the same thing over here. I'm just going to throw a value. Then I'm going to do the inline PHP $ rating. Oops. I'm just going to close that up. So I'm going to save this. So now at this point, instead of having the 1 in there, now I'm getting Rocky PG-13. Now the update isn't going to work yet because we still have the insert statement in there. But if I go to my movie list and I go to the blob is going to be PG-13. If I go to the fog is going to be rated R. So anything I click on now, the Toxic Avenger is popping in. So now I'm able to get to this point. So now I need to think about this a little bit. So if I were to click on Update Movie, I've got this TXT and the rating both being submitted over the wire. So we're going to be doing a post back. The problem that I currently have is when I post back, I'm checking to see if this get is set. And if it's set, that's good. If it's not set, it's kicking us out of there before we ever get to the post. So the flow of the page is actually going to be short-circuiting before we even get to this point. So I think the easiest way of fixing this is I'm going to grab this whole if-else statement right here where we're just pulling in the title and the rating. I'm just going to cut that. And I'm going to put it below this if statement. So I've got this if statement here. So I've got my closing PHP tag. I'm going to paste it down there. So this one's going to go first. So we're going to say, hey, has this been posted? Has this been posted? If neither one of them's been posted, no big deal. It's going to come down here. And then it's going to say, well, if neither one of these have been posted, then I don't have to do any work. Then it's going to say, is there an ID? And then if there's an ID, then we'll pull the title. We'll do all of that. If there is no ID, then it'll redirect. So just by reordering our code completely changes the flow. If I wouldn't have moved this below, I would have actually run into an error where I would have hit the submit button and it would have kicked me out before we would have even hit the ability to do any update statement. So at this point, okay, we got our database stuff, life is good. We've got our movie, we've got our title. Now we need to do the update. Now, so here's the way this is actually working. I come in here, I've got movie 5, movie ID 5, and it's the Toxic Avenger, NC-17. If I view source, I've got a form here that's going to do a post. When I post, it's going to be just posting my inputs. It's only throwing the inputs up there. So it's going to throw the movie title and the movie rating. And that's it. And then there's the end of my form. So we don't get the movie ID thrown back up to the server, which is kind of weird because you think, well, we've got it and we had it to query this. But you got to remember we're in a disconnected state. So therefore, when we hit the submit button, the only thing that's really being thrown up is the movie title and the movie rating. And that's it. So there's a couple ways we can deal with this. We need to know what the current primary key is for the movie that we're updating. We could throw it in a session, which isn't a bad option. We could throw it in a session and update it every time we come to this page. That way we've got the latest session, which actually isn't a bad option. The other thing we could do is we could tuck it into the page itself. So if I were to tuck it into the page, down here I've got my form, my post, I've got my inputs, I've got my form, my closing form tag. So as long as I'm inside this form tag, I can throw in inputs. So I could do an input, and the type could be text, and I could give it an ID of, I'm just going to follow the same standard TXT ID, and I could give it a name, and the name would be TXT ID. And then I could give it a value, and I could do the same thing I did over here with the PHP tags. I could do a inline, and then I think I called this thing $sign lowercase ID. So this variable is actually way up at the top here, where if we've got the ID, we're just shoving it inside a variable called ID. So if I save this and take a look, so if I refresh, so I could do this, all right? So if I'm on ID number 5, I've got the Toxic Avenger, I've got NC-17, and then down here I've got my 5. So when I hit my update, it'll update item number 5 with these values. It looks stupid having that there. So instead of using a text box, we could do something called a hidden. So like Rocky here is 1. So whatever it is there is going to be down there. The blob is 4. So that's there. So when I hit the update, it'll throw all 3 of these items up to the server. So now it knows this is the movie, this is the new title, this is the new rating. So what I'll do is I'll go back down to my form, and here, instead of my input type being text, I can actually do my input type being hidden. So if I save that and I refresh it, now you can't even see that it's there. But if I right click View Source, if I scroll down, I can actually see that I've got a hidden input right here. So now, if this was an account number, if this was something that's unique to the specific individual, then you'd have to use a session. Okay, so like for example, if it's a banking number, you really don't want to have a hidden value of a banking number, because if I was really squirrely, I could start guessing different banking numbers and then maybe update other people's accounts. You don't want to do that. So if it's any type of user key or any type of primary key for the user, you wouldn't want to do that. Since this site, basically all of these movies are our movies, we can update any one of the movies. We click on it. At this point, it doesn't matter if it's hidden, because I could just go back to the list and select a different movie. But if for some reason this list was segmented in different users, had different permissions, then you definitely want to use the session. And we did the session previously, where the very first thing you do is that session start. We did that for the 8-ball. So we could do that session start and then just create a session variable. So instead of holding it here, we would actually just create like a question mark underscore session, and then we'd just call it something like key, and then we'd just make that equal to the $underscore get. So we could do that as well. So if we did that, that would be another way of doing it. The downside with the session is you've got about 20 minutes. If somebody hangs on the page for 20 minutes and then hits the button, the session may have expired. So I would not use the session unless it's like a logged in user, and then you can monitor that, and then once the session expires, you can actually kick them out. So for this example, even though the session may be a little bit more secure, since we're not doing any role-based type of transactions where user A can delete certain items, user B can only add items, if we had a situation like that, then we would need to do sessions. So for right now, I'm not going to do the session. Okay, so now the ID is being passed back up to the server. And now, if that's there, that's there. I could assume the ID is there. If I wanted to be really thorough, I could check for the ID as well. But if both of those are there, I'm going to assume that that the ID is going to be there as well. So I'm just going to want to store the ID, and I need to pull it out of that post because now I'm coming back up to the server after the user updated the movie title. Got to make sure it's all caps. And I called that thing TXT ID. I don't know if I did a capital I and a capital D. They do have to match. I did TXT capital ID. So, so if you're struggling with this, like what we're doing here, temporarily what you can do is just flip this over from being a post, my form is a method of a post, to a get. So I'm just going to save it. It's going to cause me errors because over here I'm looking for a post. So, but just for example, what I would do is go to the fog and then hit update. Oh. I hit this. I'm just going to comment that out for right now. I hit my redirect. Which one? That one. The one on the ID. So just for right now, I'm trying to just demo something. Alright, so I'm going to hit the fog. So I'm on the fog to update movie. So now up here I can see the TXT title is the fog, the TXT rating is R, and the TXT ID is 2. So all of those are being thrown up to the server. So I'm gonna switch that back. So I want the redirect to be there. It just was causing me not to be able to see what I wanted. And then I'm going to switch it back over to the post. So when I'm troubleshooting, I always toggle from the post to a get, just that way I can visually see what's being sent up to the server. Alright, so I'm going to switch that back to post. And I've got my TXT title, TXT rating, and my TXT ID. All three of them successfully made it up. So then up here, I've got my TXT title, TXT rating, TXT ID. And what I want to do, instead of doing an insert, I want to do an update. So I want to update this table, and I want to set, my movie title equal to my colon movie, and actually I'll do a capital M just to keep them different, movie title, comma. So like right now I'm doing an update statement, and if you struggle with SQL, again, thank God for Google, you know, I mean, don't hesitate to look stuff up. So if I wanted to do like an update, I would just do SQL update example. W3 Schools is awesome. So here they've got, I can update table, set column equal to value, comma, column equal to value, where some column is equal to some value. So this is what we're doing right now. So I'm doing update my movie list table. I'm going to set my movie title equal to some placeholder, which will eventually be this title, comma, title rating is going to be equal to, actually I've got that over here, colon rating. Actually I'll do that colon title so they match. Okay, so my movie title will be equal to colon title. Movie rating is equal to colon rating. Now, you have to remember the where statement. If you don't remember the where statement, it will update all your records to this. So we have to just make sure you're limiting to the update only taking the one specific table record into account. Where movie, I think it's a lowercase m, movie ID is going to be equal to colon ID. Okay, so at this point I'm doing update table, movie list is my table. I'm going to set movie title, which is my database field movie title. And if you don't remember your field names, you can always just double click on here. We've got movie ID, movie title, movie rating. Those are the fields that we're updating. So movie title is going to be equal to something I made up. So it's colon title, and anything that's a colon is a placeholder. So colon title, and then movie rating is the actual field name over here. Movie rating is my field. I'm going to set that equal to colon rating, something I made up, where movie ID is equal to colon ID. So now over here I need to bind these. So two of them we're solid on because we already have title going to our variable title, rating going to our variable rating. Both of those we did, but we need one more now because now we have a where clause. When we did the insert statement, we didn't need to worry about the ID because it was an auto-incremented, but now we're updating. So with an update statement, we need to have this ID in there. So ID is going to be equal to my variable ID here. So at this point, I think that should work. Then we execute it. Life is good. We're going to update it. So I'm going to save this. And if I come back over here, go to my movie list. I'm going to go Rocky. I want to make that into Rocky 3. Now let's just say Rocky is PG. Ooh, no spaces, Joe. PG-13. The reason I said no spaces, I think we limited to that field to being 5 digits. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that would be 5. Spaces would be 6, 7. So that would have been an error message. But for right now, Rocky 3, I'm hitting update. And now it's Rocky 3, PG-13. If I wanted to make that rated R and keep it Rocky 13, rated R. Still is Rocky 13, rated R. Rocky 2. Could be Rocky 2. I'm going to save that. So now we can update these. So we can add new ones. Let's just make it PG. So I can have Rocky, Rocky 3, Rocky 2. So this is working. This is working. So we can update. We can do all that. We can add new ones. So what I'd like to be able to do is I'd like to be able to delete now, just in case I want to get rid of something off the list. I think what I would do is, since we already have it set up where the title is a hyperlink, if I click on it, I already know I can update it, but it would be nice to be able to have a delete button. If I click the delete button, then it will just delete it and pop me back over to movie list, and then it would be gone. So I think that's what I'd like to do, is just add another button. So I've got two options. I could keep it all in this form itself. I could kick it off to another form. I could use JavaScript and go to a page that just deletes. I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make a button. If I click the button, it's going to pop up a JavaScript box, and with a JavaScript box, it's going to ask, are you sure you want to delete? So I'm going to do a confirmation, say yes, and then we'll redirect over to a form that'll delete it. So let's do that. So I'm going to stay inside here, and I'm going to go down to my form, and I've got my input here, which is my submit button. I'm going to do a space, I'm going to do a pipe, I'm going to do a space, and then I'm going to do another input, but this one's going to have a type of button because I'm going to use JavaScript. And the value is going to say delete movie. So I'm going to start with just the JavaScript portion of it. So that way, when I click on it, I get a confirmation box. So that way, do you really want to delete this movie, yes or no? So within JavaScript, you do have something called a confirm. So I'm just going to go JavaScript. And the way that the confirm works is it'll return back a yes or a no, or true or a false. So press the button. If it's true, you pressed OK. Otherwise, you pressed cancel. So that's what we're going to do. So let's tie the button to a function. So I'm going to go to my head area, and I'm just going to mix some JavaScript in with the HTML. So I'm going to do a script block, and my type is going to be text CSS. Oh, I almost did text CSS. It's going to be text JavaScript. Okay, so then inside the script block, I'm just going to create a function. And the function is going to be called delete. Delete movie. And for right now, I'm just going to do an alert. Kind of a good way to start, just by popping something up on the screen. I'm just going to say here, just that way I know I'm working. Okay, so I've got a function called delete movie, and it's just going to pop up a message box saying here. So let's just see if we can get our button to pop up a box. Let's start there. So we've got our button here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do an on-click event. Clicking all over here. Alright, so I've got my button. I've got an on-click. And when I click, I see that I've got a method called delete movie. I'm just going to save this. And I'm going to refresh. Always have to refresh with JavaScript because we just updated this. So I click it, I see a here button. So when I click it, I'd like to actually pop open Toxic Avenger, which might be more difficult than it looks because we've got spaces, but we're going to give it a try. So I am going to just pass in the variable. So I'm going to just do double ticks. I'm going to test something here before I go too far. Toxic AVG. So I'm passing in a string into this delete movie box. And then inside this JavaScript function, I need to be able to create a variable here to hold that. So I'm just going to call it title. And then inside my alert, I'm just going to use that title. Now remember, in JavaScript, we don't have to start our variables with a $sign. Matter of fact, if we did, that may be confusing. So that's now a parameter. So if I refresh this, okay, so you see the Toxic Avenger, which is good. So now I want to actually pull that from here. So at this point, I have a variable called title. So I'm just going to put that title into my button click event, which is right here in between my single ticks. We're going to see what this does. I'm going to refresh it. Toxic Avenger, that's a good sign. So if I come over here and go to Rocky 3, delete movie, Rocky 3. Alright, so that's a good sign. Okay, so I've got an on-click, delete movie, single trick, wrapping a PHP title, and then if I go up to my function, my JavaScript function, I've got my delete. So instead of using an alert, we're going to use a confirm. And the confirm is going to be wrapped in an if statement, because the confirm is going to return back a true or a false. If it's true, then we're going to delete. For right now, it's going to alert up a text box that says delete. Just that way we know we're going to delete. Okay, so the confirm is a string. Do you want to delete? Maybe not a capital D. Do you want to delete? And then I'm going to concatenate with a plus sign. All right, so now we're mixing languages, which you got to kind of wrap your head around it. So the confirm is saying, do you want to delete? And then this will be whatever the movie title is. And then if they click in yes, we should see an alert box that says delete. If they click on cancel, it'll return false, which will jump over this. So I'm just going to save this and see if this is going to work. So I'm refreshing. I'm on Rocky 3. Do you want to delete Rocky 3? If I hit cancel, life is good. Hit it. Hit yes, or okay. Then I get a delete box. So my logic is pretty sound at this point. Cancel is going to cancel it. Delete is going to delete it. But now we're in JavaScript, and I need to delete it up on the server, right? So somehow I need to know what movie I need to delete. I need to know the primary key of it. So there's stuff I need to know. So my simple button here is delete movie with the title. I'm going to need a second parameter, which is going to be the ID, because I need to know what movie I need to delete. So instead of just saying delete, I'm going to say delete, and then I'm going to just put the ID in there, because I need the ID. So I added a second parameter, which also means that I need to add that second argument to my button down here. So if I take a look at my delete movie button, I've got the title, my tick tick. If I do a comma, now what I want to do is I want to get the ID. So I do have the ID as a PHP variable. So I'm going to just put that in the second parameter. So I've got delete movie, open paren, the title, comma, outside of the single text, and then the ID in there. So if I save this, now if I refresh, I'll be able to say delete movie. Do you want to delete it? Yep. So now it's going to delete one. All right, so I didn't put a space in there, but that's okay. If I go to the blob, which is 4, delete movie, do you want to delete the blob? Yes. Delete 4. Okay, so now I've got the primary key. Somehow I need to throw that back up to the server to actually do my delete statement, and then I would like to pop back to this list and then have like the blob not even show up. So in order to do that, I actually need to create another PHP file. This one I'm not going to take from a template because no one will ever see the user interface on it. So I'm just going to go new PHP file, and then I'm just going to call it moviedelete.php. I'm just going to close this tag up. So in here, basically what I want to do is I want to just put my delete code in here. The way I'm going to do it is I'm going to do it very similar to what we did over here. Where we're checking the is set on the ID, and if that's true, we're going to do this. I'm just going to do an if statement. I'm just going to copy this chunk of code, and I'm going to go to my movie delete page, and then I'm just going to look for the ID. So we're going to throw the ID over, and then we're going to then pull the ID and put it into a local variable. We're going to create our database, so I need to make my database connection. I need that include. I don't currently have the include because I put it up towards the top here. Oh, I didn't mean to click on that. So here's my include, opening up my database connection. So now I've got my database connection, make my connection. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to say delete and no star, because we're going to delete the entire row. So it's going to be delete from table where movie ID is equal to ID. Our ID is here. We're going to execute it. There is no fetch. There is no values because now we just deleted it all. So all of this is good. And then the very last thing we're going to do, matter of fact, either way, it doesn't matter how they got there, we're going to redirect them back to the movie list because we're done. So at this point, we're coming in, the ID that we want to delete movie 7. 7's there. We drop 7 into a local variable. We're pulling in our database connection. We pick up the phone. We call our database. We say, hey, database, delete from this table where the movie ID is equal to ID. We're then taking that, matching up our ID. We execute it, fire it all off. Life is good. And then we're going back here. So I'm just going to save this. So we've got our delete movie logic all solid. Now we just got to tie the JavaScript to this. So the way that I would do it is within that JavaScript method here, we don't want to just pop up an alert box. What we actually want to do is we want to tell the document href to change the location. So it's going to be like document.location. And then we have to fully qualify it because we're running from the browser. So in this case, what I want to do is I want to go to do I fully qualify it? I'm going to try not to and see if that works. I'm just going to say go to movie, delete, .php. Just going to save that and see what happens. And I don't need to pop up my alert box because we're getting our confirmation. So I'm going to go to Toxic Avenger, delete movie. Are you sure you want to delete it? Yes. And it's still there. But it actually did kind of go through the whole process. Oh, I know why. I know why. That's because it doesn't know what movie to delete. We need to concatenate on here. The ID is equal to, and then I need to do a concatenation to the ID we're passing in. So that's why we passed in the ID. So that ID is being concatenated onto delete movie. So we have to pass that in. So now when we call that movie delete, the very first thing we're doing is looking for that ID, and then it knows what to delete. So since that ID wasn't there, it skipped this whole if statement and just redirected us. So I think we're actually probably going to work this time. Okay, so I'm going to go back to Toxic Avenger. I'm going to hit delete movie. Are you sure? No, I'm not. Okay, let's try it again. Delete it? Yes. Boom, now it's gone. So now we can delete movies, we can add movies. The Blob, you're gone. Rocky 2, going to be Rocky 4. Okay, so I think we've got the full CRUD down. We can create, we can read, we can update it, and we can delete. That's the primary stuff that you need when working on databases. So anyways, hopefully this video was helpful.